Watch Flex Air 5, you won't regret it. Let me immediately regret it. I already know what that whole series is. Just a fucking collage of memes. Might as well start it off in a shitty way. Let's go. Okay, that's probably enough. I'm not really a huge meme guy. Sorry, Logan. But contrary to what you said, I did regret it. I know about the... Did Jim Browning still not get his channel back? Nope, he still hasn't gotten it back. I can't believe him of all people got scammed. And the worst fucking scam of all time, too.
What happened?
He thought he was talking to YouTube customer support. They sent a message saying that you have a duplicate AdSense account and we're going to suspend your account unless you reply. And he did, and they convinced him to delete his own account. I honestly couldn't believe it.
Is he a big YouTuber?
Yeah. He exposes scammers and then got scammed. The Wizard of Oz and the Dark Side of Hollywood. Is that the conspiracy about the guy that hung himself? Oh, how do I keep missing EmpLemon's uploads? Seems to have really struck something deep in Mizkif here. As a changed man. There's a lot of other things that happened too. Well, no one hung themselves on this set of Wizard of Oz. It's a myth. This is an ad? Oh shit. Alright, I see. I watched most of the ad. I did my part.
1938 to March 1939. During these 5 months, the stars of the movie were subject to some of the most horrendous conditions in the history of the American film industry. The 1930s were a period of major turmoil and hardship for the American public. The Great Depression ravaged almost every sector of the economy.
Yeah,
While
that'll
most
do it.
American industries were struggling, the film industry was booming. To escape from the dread of everyday life, most Americans sought refuge in the cinema. Nowadays, about
How do they
1 in
pay
10
for the
Americans
cinema
have gone to
experience,
the
though?
movies in the past week. In the 30s,
I imagine it couldn't have been
was
super
not
cheap.
uncommon for half of all Americans to pay a weekly visit to the theater, and no studio was more illustrious than MGM.
Rest in peace, MGM.
They were the studio widely considered to provide audiences with the biggest stars and the grandest spectacle.
What happened to
Profits
MGM? They
generated
suck.
by all 8 major
Well, actually, they
studios.
just got bought, didn't they?
MGM's dominance over Hollywood was due
All
in
they have
large
is
part to
James
the
Bond
strong
now,
leadership
and
of
Tom
its
and
chief
Jerry.
executive, Louis B. Mayer, who in 1937 was the highest paid man in America. That year, Walt Disney would release
Woo!
his first animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In 1938, the studio bought out the rights to L. Frank Baum's popular children's novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and the rest
I had
was
no idea
history.
it was based on a book.
History that some members of the cast and crew wished they could forget. The coloring method used to develop the film was Technicolor, which required heavy exposure due to the process of splitting the image
Thank
into
you,
different
Justin.
colored channels. As a result, the Oz set required an exorbitant amount of lighting, so much so that the temperature on stage often surpassed 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a
The
literal
heat was
normal
suffocating,
afternoon in
and
Florida.
stagehands frequently had to be carried off stage after fainting. The set lighting was so intense that some actors even claimed to suffer permanent vision damage. The exhaustion suffered from the oppressive heat was
What?
only a significant part of each actor's day was dedicated to the meticulous preparation and removal of their costumes. The Scarecrow.
I don't
Tin
understand
Man,
how-
and Cowardly
well,
Lion
I
are
guess
one
I
of
could
the
see
most
it
recognizable
with the vision
trios in
loss.
fiction. All 3 characters were brought to life by the skilled design of makeup artist Jack Dawn. Ray Bolger would have to spend an hour getting his latex and plastic mask painstakingly glued to his face, and every evening he would spend an hour getting it removed. The mask completely covered his facial pores.
To be fair, that's
He was
not
unable
that
to
bad.
sweat while wearing it. One could only
A lot of
imagine how it
actors
must have
spend like
felt to
7
wear
hours
that
in
thing
their
for
shit,
15
or
hours a
putting it
day.
on.
But Ray Bolger didn't have to imagine. For 22 weeks, it was his reality.
It could be worse.
By the time filming was complete, the repeated applications of the mask left Bolger with permanent grooves around his mouth and chin.
Holy
But
shit.
considering what happened to some of the other actors, he may have gotten off easy. The Tin Man was played by Buddy Ebsen for about 9 days. That's how long he lasted during filming until he was hospitalized from a severe reaction to the Tin Man's metallic makeup. Ebsen's silver
Did they just
face
actually
was
spray
made out
paint
of
him?
aluminum powder that would eventually coat the inside of his lungs.
Oh my
completely
God.
asphyxiating him. As Ebsen
What?
sat bedridden under an oxygen tent in the hospital, the studio could not have given him less sympathy. Producer Mervyn LeRoy
Yeah, get stronger
refused to leave the
lungs,
hospital,
nerd.
angrily insisting that Ebsen return to the set. After 2 weeks out of action, the studio replaced Ebsen with Jack Haley. Jack Haley managed to avoid a catastrophic reaction to the aluminum makeup, but it still gave him a severe eye infection that forced him out of work for days. The rest
Why
of the
not just
suit was
switch
so
the
stiff
like
that
from
it rendered
aluminum
Haley
powder to
unable
like
sit down or lie down during
crayons
filming.
or something?
In
I don't know.
order to
Fucking
rest
melt
in
crayons
between
on his
takes,
face.
he was forced to lean on a reclining board. But despite all the complications it caused, the Tin Man costume may have still been preferable to that of the Cowardly Lion. The costume consisted of a 60-pound lion hide, a real lion hide. Combined with additional padding, some estimates put the weight of the full costume at 100 pounds. Burt Lahr would become
God, he's like a real-life
speechless
Rock
for just
Lee.
a few minutes, and he would frequently have
What?
to take off the suit between shots to avoid exhaustion. But by far the worst costume-related accident during the whole shoot happened to Margaret Hamilton, better known as the Wicked Witch.
How?
Nowadays, there are
That
lots
seems
of
so
ways to make
simple.
someone look green, but in
Did
1938,
they put?
the only
Oh,
tried and true method used by Hollywood makeup artists was copper paint. Copper, of course, is
wow.
toxic when ingested by humans. Hamilton realized that the constant application of the witch's makeup had tinted her skin green, an effect that lingered for months after the job. Wearing the makeup
Holy
on set
shit.
was a constant struggle. Once it was on, Hamilton was unable to touch anything without staining it, since the accident
soup.
she suffered on December 23, 1938. When departing Munchkinland, Hamilton was scripted to exit the scene in a fiery cloud of smoke. The first attempt at the stunt went flawlessly, but director Victor Fleming wanted to get a few extra takes for insurance. On the fourth attempt, the pyrotechnics were ignited too early,
Oh,
causing
they
Hamilton to be
incinerated
engulfed in
her.
flames. The accident resulted in second-degree burns on the whole right side of her face. The skin on her right hand was entirely scalded off. But before Hamilton could even receive medical attention,
Whoa.
she had to slowly and excruciatingly have the copper makeup removed from her freshly burned skin with rubbing alcohol. Margaret Hamilton would spend the next 6 weeks in the hospital before returning to the set.
Holy
On her very
shit.
project was nearing completion at that point, the studio acquiesced, and the scene was completed using Hamilton's stunt double, Betty Danko. While filming that very scene, the smoke pipe underneath the broomstick exploded, and Danko was violently flung from the installation. The explosion was caused by the special effects crew coating the pipe with asbestos, another toxic substance.
No,
that's
the science isn't there yet. We don't know if that's actually dangerous.
Ray Bolger's scarecrow suit, as well as the snow in the poppy field scene.
Unusual weather.
Oh my god, they use asbestos
Betty Danko
there?
was hospitalized for 11 days with field scene.
All of this is asbestos? How cheap was it? I feel like it'd be cheaper just to like, I don't know, like sprinkle fucking sugar or something. How fucking cheap was asbestos back then? It was 1937, right? So let's just look up 1930 asbestos price. Like they had to just be giving this shit away for free or something. That actually seems about right. There's not really like an estimate here, but it just, all these sources keep confirming that it's like the cheapest thing at that entire area. That's fucking crazy.
Unusual weather we're having, ain't it?
Betty Danko was hospitalized for 11 days with internal damage from the explosion, as well as a 2-inch deep gash on her leg, a wound that would never fully heal. It was a hefty toll for a gig in which she earned just over $800.
Oh, that's big money
Long-term
though.
Health effects on Margaret Hamilton were far less known. What is known is that she would go on to develop Alzheimer's later in her life, a condition that has been linked to copper poisoning. Perhaps none suffered a worse fate than the star of the show, Judy Garland. She was without a doubt one of the most talented performers of the 20th century. Her portrayal of Dorothy in The
Thanks,
Wizard of
Mr.
Oz
Monster
has
and
served as an
Airbird.
enduring symbol of youth and innocence. And even though she was never imprisoned by a brutal costume like the other actors, the studio paid no less scrutiny to her appearance. Since the character of Dorothy was envisioned as a prepubescent girl, the then 17-year-old Garland had to constantly wear a tight corset to hide her more mature figure. But that was merely one aspect of the studio's efforts to keep Judy thin. Garland was placed on a shoestring diet, one that would not provide her with enough energy to complete the arduous filming days. To compensate, the studio kept Garland on a steady intake of amphetamines to keep her working long into the day.
Oh.
The amphetamines subsequently necessitated the use of barbiturates to prevent Garland from exhausting herself.
Wow.
Years later, she claimed that during some periods she would only sleep 4 hours every 3 days. The fact that she was able to perform as well
That's
as she
efficiency.
did under these conditions is nothing short of astonishing. By the end of production, Garland was addicted to both drugs, an addiction that would last for the rest of her life. In many ways, Judy Garland was the first tragic child star, an archetype that has sadly become much more common in modern times. Clinical psychiatrist John Linden encountered many such patients.
Yeah,
while
if you hate
practicing
your
in the Los
kid, you
Angeles
get them in a
area.
movie.
He observed that premature stardom
I can't think of
resulted in
any
many
child
actors
star that
forming
has
severe
become
identity
normal or
issues.
had a good
They
life.
tended to report a feeling of profound emptiness when they weren't performing, as if they were marionettes whose true selves lacked any sort of meaning. On June 22nd, 1969, Judy Garland was found dead of an overdose on her bathroom floor. She was just 47 years old.
Goddamn.
In the years leading up to her death, her increasingly erratic downfall was treated by the media as some sort of morbid spectacle. The American public seemed unable to reconcile how she could have possibly been anyone other than the innocent farm girl from Kansas. Oftentimes, it's easy for studios to lose sight of the real-life human beings at their disposal and to end up treating them as, well, marionettes. It would be easy
I mean,
to
yeah,
look
that's
back
Hollywood.
at all the trauma from The Wizard of Oz and chalk it up to a product of its time. Back then, studios could just get away with all of it because if any actor fought back, they would be blacklisted from the industry. It would be naive to suggest that much has changed in Hollywood. The inner workings of the film industry
Harvey
have always been an
Weinstein.
enigma. The
Is he in
history
jail
of
yet?
Hollywood is smeared with talented people guilty of terrible things. Very rarely do we ever get to discover what truly goes on behind the big
He
green
is?
curtain. Out of every
That's good.
scandal that does come to light, we can only imagine what remains.
Well,
in the
Bill
dark.
Cosby's an
In
innocent
the
man.
business of telling
He's
the biggest
back on the
stories
streets, baby.
possible, the smaller stories
He's
often
an
get
innocent
left
guy.
behind.
He shouldn't be in
For
here.
22 weeks in 1938 and 1939, 6 of Hollywood's most talented actors were practically tortured, with many of them experiencing long-lasting and permanent damage to their bodies and minds. The result was one of the single greatest artistic works of the 20th century. The Wizard of Oz
I never
was
liked
the
that movie.
defining career achievement for every single person
even
who
as a
worked
kid.
on it. Their suffering had directly contributed to the most beloved film of a generation. It's tempting to dismiss everything you've heard today as an exploitative cash grab from greedy media tyrants, but for MGM, it was never that simple. In 1939, MGM released 41 films in total, premiering a new
Whoa.
movie once every 9 days on average.
What the
At
fuck?
this time, the studio had no shortage of revenue. What they
That's
coveted
crazy.
instead was prestige. Today, it may seem unfathomable that our most popular and celebrated actors will inevitably meet the same fate. But at the end of the day, it is art, not the artist, which stands the test of time. Despite the turmoil suffered by the actors on the set of Oz,
That's pretty
one has to
powerful.
wonder
Not
if
wrong.
any of them ever regretted it.
Yeah, I think pretty much all of them, I would think, right? I mean, I guess the one that got it the
4,500
easiest was
years
the
ago.
lion. What was his name again? Case in point, I have no idea who the fuck he is, but yeah, the lion seems to have got it easiest. His was more of just like an endurance test. The others were actually poisoned. I just typed in Brett Lahr regret, and I didn't get any results. Thus, he didn't regret it. Man was happy. Since nothing came up, it means he must have loved it. See, what did I tell you?
Ago, the ancient Egyptians completed the Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure so remarkably ambitious that it would stand as the tallest building on Earth.
He's a
until the
tier 1
Middle
lonely
Ages.
gamer.
For millennia, archaeologists found it inconceivable that it could have been constructed by any other means than a massive workforce of slave labor, and that some people believe it had to have resulted from supernatural or extraterrestrial influence. However, recent
Yeah.
archaeological studies have uncovered a truth that is somehow even more unbelievable. The vast majority of people who built the Great Pyramid were volunteers. The ancient Egyptians risked life and limb to participate in something greater than themselves. Their reward for 20 years of deadly backbreaking labor is that we still talk about them today, long after everything they knew and loved ceased to exist. What would you be willing to sacrifice if it meant you could live forever? Since the dawn of civilization, mankind has
Thanks,
sought the
Blue
secret to
Shinryu.
immortality. We
Lice
can
and the
only
Prime
wonder
Funk.
if science or religion will ever help us achieve eternal life. But at the very least, art can get us pretty damn close.
Nice. Well, I had no idea it was like that. It was pretty fucking intense. MGM's done a great job of keeping that out of the public face. Not that anyone ever talks about MGM at all anyway, but still.